Okay, so this is my history presentation project for Early Childhood Care and Education, Class 1101, the Introduction. So this is my first page. This is just my name, the class this year in, and a photo of myself in a little coffee shop. So today I'm going to be talking about Jean Piaget. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Hopefully I am. I'm not sure, but I just put a little picture of him down there. He lived from 1896 to 1980, which sounded pretty crazy to me, but he was only in his 80s when he died. So I just have a little key of my key points, shaping childcare, and my references page, so let's get into it. So the main thing about Jean Piaget is that he recognizes the 4 stages of mental development. These stages are sensory motor stage, which is from 0, which is birth, to 2 years. This is when the child develops object permanence, uses their reflex, things like that, things you would really see in a newborn to 2 years. So the next stage is 2 to 7. That's the pre-operational stage. This is personally the ages that I work with. So the child starts to use symbolistic thought and mental abstractions. So this is like, talking a little bit, using their toys, figuring out what their toys and such do. So next is the concrete operational stage, which is ages 7 to 11. This means that the child understands problem solving and logical thinking. This is pretty much asking questions, understanding questions. This is what you see almost fully adult. They're starting to understand concepts of the world. And then our last stage here is the formal operation stage, which is 11 to adulthood. This is thinking of their own concepts, including hypothetical and using scientific reasoning. So usually 11 and above, we can think about future and past situations and concepts other than just current. The age I work with personally, they are 3, and I can't really ask them questions about, oh, what are you doing this weekend or anything. They don't really understand it. So this is when they start to understand current, they start remembering things, their past, things like that. So next we have his impact on cognitive development. The 4 stages of mental development led him to the understanding that cognitive development limits their ability to understand certain concepts. This means that children don't understand certain concepts at certain ages. For example, asking a 1-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up? That would be inappropriate because they developmentally cannot understand the future concepts, which means that over time they will develop that. And back then people used to think, why can't I ask my 3-year-old these complex questions? And that's because developmentally they are not there yet. How children learn. In 1920, Jean Piaget studied children at the Alfred Binet Laboratory in Paris. He learned by naturalistic observation that children learn through interacting. He was given a test to interview children with. He thought it was too rigid, he didn't like it, but he thought it was really interesting to ask the children the questions anyways and have them make up their own quote unquote incorrect answers. So he thought it was interesting that children could use their own imagination to answer these crazy questions like 5 plus 10 or what does this do and all of those kinds of things. So with that, he also learned that children learned the most through playing and interactions. So I just inserted a little picture over here of children playing. It looks like they're just playing in sand, shoveling stuff. And I think this is important because children do definitely learn through play and interaction. They're learning and playing with their friends right now. So next are Jean Piaget's important concepts. So he had 4 of these important concepts. And the first one is adaptation, which means children are learning and updating their cognitive thinking. So this means that children have schemas, he says, and This means that they are learning one thing, doing it over and over and over, and then they learn something new. So assimilation kind of goes after that, children incorporating the new information into their existing schemas. So for example, if a child has a toy and it makes noise, they know to just bang it on something and make noise. Well, they have new information that when you bang it on something, it makes noise. So they can start doing that in patterns. They can make different kinds of patterns with the noises. Accommodation comes next. So this is children adapting their new learned information into real-world situations. The example I saw from a website that is mentioned in my references says that children learn things such as a cat goes meow and a dog goes woof, and they put that into real-world situations, and for example, kids will call a cat a meow and a dog a woof or some things like that. And the last one is equilibrium. That is children regulating after learning and using the new information. So Jean Piaget says that children always strive to be at an equilibrium. When you are learning something new and using that, they're at a disequilibrium, which means they are kind of a little bit out of whack and they just want to get back to, having their steady set things of learning. So they want to regulate the things that they've learned and regulate the things they're using. So it's not really new to them anymore. It's kind of just adjusting, things like that. Next we have naturalistic observation. So this basically just means that he observed children playing on their own. He had a theory different from the rest of psychologists because he observed these children learning on their own. They're not following the same rules that adults do, and he learned that children of different developmental stages have different schemas, which are formed and replaced with new information as children get older but are not forgotten, which is what we just mentioned in the previous slide. So he actually had his own children that he also observed like this with other children in his studies, and he really just learned that children are learning through playing and observing them without asking them interview questions. They learn in their own ways at different rates. So shaping current practice. Today we use Piaget's theory by using normalized and state-published developmental standards for children. In my center personally, we move children developmentally and not by age. Of course, if there's a 3-year-old in a 5-year-old room, it can get a little crazy, but that typically doesn't happen because of Piaget's theory, the 4 stages of operations. Let me see. All thanks to Piaget, he set a standard for learning through play and appropriate experiences and materials. Of course, it would not be appropriate for a 1-year-old to play with math flashcards. So they learn through different experiences like counter blocks or counter bears or things like that. So these are my references. I inserted a picture of this book that I got some things out of. This is actually a couple of the psychologists from back then and how all of their opinions differed. And those are some of the websites that I used. They had pretty good information, and I was able to get all of my information from just these 3 things, which was pretty great. Thank you.